again, we're still in mediation. Jeff and the lawyers for the township and the county are still supposed to be mediating with, going to mediation with the judge. It's called status conferences, and updating the judge on how they're progressing with the shelter. And so this is the aim and the goal of these status conferences, is that they're supposed to be progressing toward a shelter. And so what seems to be happening is the township and the county are telling the judge, yeah, we're all excited about doing this, we want to do this. But then on the other hand, in reality, what's going on is they're trying everything in their power to derail it through the back door. So it's basic hypocrisy. It's hypocrisy, and that they're telling the judge that they want the shelter, but in reality they're proving by their actions that they don't. So, and what's been happening is the harassment started with wood chips on the on the driveway, and then it built up to towing vehicles out of Tent City. Then it was towing my vehicle out of Tent City, my house, the bus that I was staying in. And then it progressed to arresting me 2 days in a row. One day during the day, and then the next day at nighttime, at 11 o'clock at night, they come to my tent and they arrest me, almost in the middle of the night. And now it's progressing to these fines that they want to impose. They're saying that, since I didn't have a permit to put up these tents, or put in these wood stoves, or put in a shower, or the outhouses, and there's a host of them. There's about 10 to 15 complaints that they've listed. But if they're and it's $2,000 a week per violation. So if they're saying if there's 100 tents in Tent City, and it's $2,000 per violation, per tent, per week. That's 200,000. That's was that 400,000, right? Let's see, $2,000 a week per 100 tents. So that's 2,000. That's $200,000 just for the tents in fines per week.
Wow.
Compounded weekly. So. So we're getting close to $1 million a month once you include the wood stoves and everything like that. So they're stepping things up. They arrest me, and the bail was $11,500, per arrest, and so of course I had to go to a bail bondsman, and that depleted the account of the homeless almost to zero. I mean, it was just fortunate that I had enough in there to be able to bail myself out. If not, I don't know where I'd be. I might be still in the county jail right now. So as of yet, they haven't been able to break me, haven't been able to take me down. And so, but they're just, the mayor and the township committee has said within a month, this is when they were on 101.5, a local radio station, they said within a month we'll have a resolution to Tent City. We'll have Tent City. We'll have a finalization to Tent City within a month. So they promised the people out there, and I guess they figured this was going to work. This is about a month ago, and you can, on 101.5, if you look up on their website, I'm sure you could probably still find it. But it was two of the committee men. I don't know if it was the mayor and one of the committee men, but two of the committee men of the township were on 101.5 stating that there was going to be a resolution to Tent City within a month. And I think they were talking about these fines, and that they would be able to take me down, with these fines, or take down Tent City. What it says on this paperwork, if we don't resolve these violations, they're going to come in and dismantle things themselves. They state it right on the paperwork. So they were, I guess, I don't know if they were thinking we're going to take down our own tents and move out, because what they said is they would charge us whatever the cleanup fee for cleaning up Tent City and getting rid of everything. they would charge us with the bill, charge me with a bill. So maybe they thought, well, Minister Steve doesn't want to pay, the money that they would charge, so he'll get in dumpsters and he'll tell the people, you got to leave, because he doesn't want to be charged. And so, but again, it all fell apart. Jeff went to the judge. The judge said, you have to. They're not shutting down Tent City without a court order, and I'm not giving a court order. So and he called Mike. I think Mike DeSucchio, I believe his name is, or something like that, the Lakewood lawyer, and basically, he admitted defeat. The Lakewood lawyer, that this plan didn't work.
Is there a restraining order against those fines, stopping everything in its tracks? Or do you know?
No. He says what Jeff is going to do. Jeff is going to appeal that.
Appeal the fines?
Yeah, he's going to appeal the Lakewood going to the county. They said they were still going to pursue the fines. Even though they couldn't shut down Tent City, they were still going to pursue the fines. And Jeff told me yesterday that he was going to pursue, getting rid of the fines. Forget the word that he used, but he said that he was going to try to get rid of the fines for us. He was just going to try to, eliminate the fines.
So, for now, anyway, things are status quo here. The tents can remain up and will remain up until the judge steps in again.
Right, and again, there was a lot of concern, because it wasn't only myself that was named in the violations. It was the organization, Lakewood Outreach Ministry Church, which is the Pastor Lee Tucker, and he got a list of the violations and the fines, and he got a little nervous. And it wasn't just me, and also it was also the co-managers, the 3 co-managers in the camp, Hannah, Pops, Gregory, and Charles. They all got the exact same thing, that they were going to have to pay all these fines. And so Hannah, she's got she's got her own places. She's got collateral. She's got things she could lose, if they find her. So she was a little concerned. And so, a lot of people were shooken up, and that's what they wanted. They wanted people to crumble. They wanted, but we stuck together, and we did, try to improve on the camp the best we could. Some of the violations that, we could take care of, we did. The outhouse, we took down the outhouse since we had the Porta-Johns here, and so we did what we could to try to pacify the township. But of course, to totally pacify the township was to take down all of the tents, take out the wood stoves, throw everything away, and do away with Tent City. And we weren't about to do that, because this is the only housing these people have.
Now, how far along is, from what you can tell, is the county developing some kind of a plan? No one's ever accused me of not talking loud enough. How far along is the county? Do you know?
You know what? It seems like they're dragging their feet. The township, put out a proposal which they brought to court and showed the judge that they would give 200 acres right here. These 200 acres they would give to the nonprofit, the organization that was to build and run a shelter. And then they reneged on that. They said we're not going to give that land after all. I mean, they point blank came out and said that they just weren't going to do it after all. They took it back after they had presented the judge with it. So it looks like the county and the township are just doing whatever they can to make this not happen.
What are they telling the judge in terms of alternative placement for the people that are here? They're saying you guys should be gone, Where do they want you to go?
Yeah, well, they've time and time again, they've said that everybody in Tent City has an avenue, has a place to go, has been offered a place to go, and they just don't want the alternatives, they don't want the options. They like Tent City and they're going to stay here, which is totally false. Totally false. There's people that have been through, the social service system, the 1 year in a hotel, and they've used up their time, and that's all they get, and they can't get help again. There's people which we call the gap people. The gap people are people that make too much money for social services to fit into social services or to be helped by social services. They make too much money for that, but they don't make enough to survive on. And there's a big gap there. I think it's $7 an hour. If you make, if you have any income that equals up to more than $7 an hour, you're making too much. You have to make less than that, or your income has to be less than that to be helped by social services.
That's less than the minimum wage.
Exactly. It's right around $7. But what it takes to survive in this area is about $23 an hour for a single individual. And that's the basic necessities: a one-bedroom apartment, a used automobile, and the basic necessities of life. If you don't have any types of subsidies or anybody you're pooling your money with, you have to earn about $23 an hour to survive in Ocean County. So you've got this gap of $7 to $23, where if you make money in between there, and again, you're not subsidized, or you're not pooling your money with somebody else and sharing the expenses, then you're not going to survive in this area. You're going to fall through the cracks. You're going to either have to move in with family or friends, or find an alternative, or move into Tent City.
I guess there are also people here that, for other reasons, are precluded from going on public assistance.
Well, yes, some of the other ones are a felony. If you have a felony, selling drugs, or any of the rest, any felony, I believe it is, the government has said they will not help you. If you're
Actually, from my understanding, it's any warrant that's been issued. So it can be child support payments. It can fall to that. That's at least a conversation I had yesterday with some social workers.
Okay, well, I know it's a big issue, because if you've got child support and you're even if you make $23 an hour and you've got child support, you've got monies out of that $23 that'll put you below the amount of money that you're going to need to survive. So, but it's definitely, I know, felons. Anybody that has a felony is excluded from federal government help, at least. So you've got the gap people, you've got the people that have used up their time through social services, and you've got people with the felonies. Those right across the board are people that are going to are not going to have the help through the government to maintain their housing. And so those are the people that, in one way or another, either they have to have family that's going to help them and support them, or like I say, they're going to have to either go to some shelter or Tent City.
How many people are in here right now, would you say? 100? Is it more than that now?
It's around 80. We've got some people coming, some people going, but it's around 80 right now.
Of that 80, how many fall into this category? These either whether they're gap or there's some legal issue that would preclude them from being eligible for the various programs?
I would say probably almost everyone has either used up their time in social services and can't get any more help through them, through special response. I would say at least 95% of the people, 90, right around there, almost everybody.
Has the county said that it has any plans at all to build additional shelter units or housing units to address this?
What they've got a system that's been here for decades. And what that system is putting people in hotels. And traditionally it's been seaside It's been mainly hotel rooms that were built probably for the vacationer, and they've got extra now, and especially in the wintertime, there's a lot of empty hotel rooms out there, and so they're charging, or social services is paying at least $1,500 a month to house one or two people in a hotel room, and sometimes it's a family. Sometimes it could be a parent, and three kids. I think I've seen a parent or two parents and their kids in a hotel room. And then sometimes it's just an individual. And it's at $1,500, and that's just the housing. That's just the hotel room. That's not the welfare stipend. That's not the food stamps. That's not any of the other extras. So we can safely say that social services is spending $2,000 a month per homeless person. And here in Tent City, our budget is about $2,000 a month for 80 homeless people. So why the county is upset with us, or bucking us, we're saving the county per homeless person an extreme amount of money. In a system like this, we would be saving the county. We could house a lot more homeless people for a lot less money than what the county is now putting people in hotel rooms. It's economically, but of course, people have been benefiting from this, and it's hard. Change is hard. It's just easy to keep with the status quo. To revamp a system, it takes effort, and I guess some people are benefiting from the old system, and they just don't want the change.
Now, the storm, Sandy, destroyed a large number of the housing units that they've been using as well. So I'm assuming the number of available units has shrunken drastically at this point. I don't know if you have any sense.
There was a housing shortage before Sandy, and without a doubt, there's a greater shortage of affordable housing after Sandy. And so I did get a call from one of the women from FEMA, and said that you can expect an influx when we shut down our shelters. She gave me some information that they were already starting to shut down some shelters, but she did say that you can expect an influx of people.
2 weeks is the date when most people are being pushed out of the hotels.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, you got that one. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I found out yesterday. So,
wow. Okay.
So I guess you'll have a better sense then. Have you seen anybody come in the last few months as a result of the storm?
No, I've seen an influx of people coming in from January 1st. The month of December was very quiet as far as new people coming in. January 1st, it's been about a person every 3 days since January 1st coming into Tent City. And typically, springtime, there's usually a major influx of people that come month of April. So yeah, I'm anticipating this spring, that there'll be a larger amount of people coming in because of the hurricane and the shortage of housing.
Now you have a long-term goal with this bridge project, which we can talk about a little bit. But how do the actions of the township affect that? I mean, is the need to fight their actions, does that delay your ability to start really focusing on where you might take this?
Well, it's probably just discouraging that it looks like they don't want to in any way build a shelter. So of course there's going to have to be some government monies involved in this, and some of the social service monies that are going to hotel rooms, would be shifted over here, and so it doesn't look like they're wanting to do that in any way. So there's it's discouraging, or it's disabling in that, you know, it doesn't look like they want to help in any way. So it's not like they're saying, you know, let's get on board, let's make this happen, and we can move forward. You know, you've got the energy, you know, that's going to come from people, you know, agreeing with you or trying to help you.
If the county came up with a piece of property big enough in another community, what do you think? I mean, I'm not saying that they would, but if they did, let's say they came up and they had 200 acres. They had 200 acres in Jackson. Is that something that you would see as potentially doable?
Well, you know, again, the logistics of transportation, jobs, access to stores, you know, all those things have to be considered. And personally, you know, Ocean County has a lot of waterfront property, bay property, ocean property, and you know, it's a beautiful resource. It really is. I mean, typically a lot of the people that have been fishermen and clammers have been the single guy that is not tied down, that can go out to sea maybe, you know, for a couple of weeks at a time. And so I think there's a niche there for this population, these single men that are free enough to go out and do that type of work. And we've got that resource right here in Ocean County. And so, you know, I believe we should tap into the resources. So, again, we'd like to have a sustainable community, growing our own fruits and vegetables. And again, Ocean County is really not suitable for farming. There's a lot of sand out here, and you need a lot of fertilization. You need a lot of, you know, it needs a lot of supplements to try to grow things. So if we have that community, that sustainable community on the ocean, and typically the Native Americans came to this area, you know, to fish and to clam and to take advantage of the resources of the bay and the ocean. And so that was typically the Native Americans came to this area. And so the same thing, we've got that resource. It would be nice if we could tap into that and have a sustainable community on the bay, or a sustainable community that's tapping into the water resources that we have here. And again, we could have that plot of land and still grow some vegetables. And what people have done in this area, up in I know, up in Colts Neck and that area, they take the leaves that fall from the trees, and the township brings them in, and they till them into the ground, and they build up the biomatter of the soil, and they're able to, you know, use that land and get quite a good harvest, a yield out of that property. So I think we can do the same thing. We can still farm to a degree, but also tap into the resources of the you know, the bay and the ocean.
Why don't you describe the vision for Destiny's Bridge at this point? Okay. What do you think this is going to look like? What do you envision coming to fruition? Again,
I think typically the rescue mission system or the shelter system in America they're almost carbon copied across America. They're almost identical across America. And what that looks like is the person will, you know, come in the evening, let's say at 5 o'clock, have a mass dinner. If it's a religious shelter, they'll have a service, and then they'll go into mass showers, and then from there they go into a mass dormitory type room where they have bunk beds, and they get ready for bed, and they put all their belongings under their bed, and you know, then a lot of times they're nervous that somebody will take their belongings. They don't sleep well. And of course there's a lot of other men, depending how big the shelter is. People are snoring, you know, you've got all that going on, and maybe confrontations going on because of personality conflicts. And then you wake up to a mass breakfast where everybody eats breakfast in the same room, and then you take all your belongings in hand and you wander the streets of the city, you know, until 5 o'clock in the evening, and you go through and a lot of these shelters have a limit to how much time you can spend there. I believe it's the Asbury Park. It's 2 or 3 weeks, and then you've got to be out for 2 weeks. And where you go for those 2 weeks, I have no idea what they're, what's the, what's the practicality of that type of a decision, But yeah, so and basically those shelters, every shelter is like that. Most every shelter is like that. With Destiny's Bridge, this concept is a community type system, a community type shelter where the individual would come in. We would assess the person's status, where they're at, how, if they have addictions, how strong their addictions, what the rehabilitation might be, and to see if they would be able to have their own individual housing. And that's the core of Destiny's Bridge. Everybody has the dignity of their own place, and in that place they would live there, and it would be as self-sustaining as much as possible. Solar panels on the roof, a wood stove, sustainable sources of heat. The people would have to gather their own wood. They would load their wood stoves, and most everything would be sustainable as far as solar energy, and tapping into groundwater, and possibly using that for air conditioning. Bringing the water up, it would be about 50 degrees, and we could use that as air conditioning. So, and the person would live in their own house, and they would be a part of that community. They would have a job within that community, and that would be like the old saying: the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. They have a job in the community that would support the community. It would be a need that the community would have, whatever that might be. Creating jars, creating candles, baking bread, it's a host of things, could be working in the garden. And so you'd have a job within the community, and the community itself would be completely self-sustaining, or as much as possible self-sustaining. And again, this building dignity, building self-worth, and building community, building friendships, and so there's, I think, a lot of emotional aspects to this type of a shelter that's not found in your typical city shelter. Totally absent. What your city shelter is doing is meeting basic physical needs and not addressing these broader emotional needs that everybody has. And it's a feeling, a sense of ownership, feeling that you have a piece of the American pie, and just having a holistic environment where people are being are feeling satisfied because of the environment.
So have you had a chance, or have you made any effort to say visit some of the Bergen County facility, where they start with a shelter, people get funneled through, but they get moved quickly into their own housing, funded by HUD, for instance.
Right, yeah.
Or similar models that exist, say, in Mercer County, and they're doing some things in Essex, and even in Middlesex as well. Have you had a chance to talk with any of them or visit with them?
Well, I've visited the rescue mission in Atlantic City a couple of times, and I've seen their system. I've heard a lot of good things about the Bergen County shelter, the new Bergen County shelter. But a lot of times these shelters are highly subsidized by taxpayer dollars. And again, I think this is something that I would like to steer away. As a society, as a government, we're in bad shape financially. We're in debt financially to the tune of $16 trillion. Somewhere in that, it's probably not even feasible to pay that money back within any reasonable amount of time. And so I think as a society we've got to try to steer away from subsidies as much as possible. Go back to people pulling their own weight the best they can and creating that environment where they can. creating an environment or a system where they can carry their own weight. I just think, in practicality, looking at things, we need to do that as a society.
Where would be the ideal location for what you're talking about?
Well, in Ocean County, the ideal, of course, would be the center of population. If we have one shelter in Ocean County, it would be convenient for everybody to have it in the center of population. And then again, I would like to see it, on the bay, or some, tributary of the bay, some river that feeds into the bay. And so, there's marinas right now that are hurting because of the economy. People aren't able to afford their boats anymore. So I know there's marinas that are for sale, and I believe we could use that property to start Destiny's Bridge. Maybe even have some homes that would be on the water, houseboats. It would be the same size as the land units. The land unit, 12 by 16, seems to be the size of the unit that we're looking at. And so it would be, we would have some land units, and we would have some units that would be on the water.
So you were talking about the size of the units. You said 12 by 16, which is almost, it's almost like a large bedroom size, right? That's like a master bedroom size in a ranch house.
Right.
So,
and again, the reason for the smaller space is, as a society, I believe, we've benefited because of cheap energy, i.e. oil. But again, it's a non-sustainable source of energy. It's a limited source of energy where there's only so much of it, supply and demand. The price of oil is going up as you have other countries that are like China and India that are coming around. So again, as the price of oil goes up, our standard of living goes down. And we've only been able to enjoy this quote-unquote prosperity because of cheap energy. And now that cheap energy is not cheap anymore, we've got to realize that as a society, and we can't continue on the same vein, on the same road that we've been on. We've got to, we've got to downsize. We've got to realize that this is our state, our situation as a world economy, and we've got to downsize. So, Destiny's Bridge will hopefully, lead the way. And show society that, hey, you can live in a small space. You don't need a lot of area. And, in that space, it'll be mostly open, except, it'll be like an efficiency, an apartment. You'll have a little kitchenette, and the only part of the room that'll be separate will be a little bathroom with a little shower stall, and a little commode area and a little sink that'll be separated by, its own little enclave. But it'll be like an efficiency apartment, all opened up. So, and then again, just telling everybody we've got to become low impact. We've got to become low impact on almost every aspect of our life. And hopefully Destiny's Bridge will lead the way and try to show people in a practical application that this is the way, America has to go, or the world has to go. Yeah, here in Tent City, we've got people that are living in tents, and of course, even in Tent City, we've got the mentality of the people here in Tent City that it's really not a progressive mindset, if you want to put it that way. The typical person in Tent City is the traditional, typical American mindset: bigger is better. Materialism and all that, and of course we've been programmed to think that way. And of course we would like to try to have training and classes to try to indoctrinate people, if you would, or teach people that we have to make changes as a society. We have to make changes for the good of the world, for the good of the communities. And so, but what we've got going on in here in Lakewood is a major gentrification going on in Lakewood. I mean, it's probably not like Lakewood is the fastest growing town in New Jersey. And a lot of this is taking place in the form of gentrification. A couple of streets over here, we had these houses 24 by 24, one story, very efficient, little square 24 by 24 housing units that were very practical, 1 or 2 bedroom homes, and they're being torn down now, and these monstrosities are being built. And now these houses are not just, wealthy people that are taking over a neighborhood that like Lakewood because of its, geographic location to the, Garden State Parkway, or other reasons because we're centrally located between New York, Philadelphia, and Atlantic City, and the ocean. It's not because of that. It's because, of a schooling system that's in this town that the students want to take advantage of. But these large homes are most of them are 3-story houses with large bedrooms, and the ceilings are typically, and some of them are 9-foot ceilings. Now men aren't growing 8 feet tall anymore, so we really don't need, 9-foot ceilings. As most people realize, heat rises. So you got a 9-foot ceiling, you got 3 feet over your head that most of your heat is going to. And so it's impractical. And again, it's just the mentality of bigger is better, and it's just, to show that you've got it because you can. But a lot of this housing, this oversized housing, is subsidized. It's being paid for by the taxpayer. A lot of these units are going for $3,000 a month rental, $250, $2,500 to $3,000 a month rent. And a lot of these, the taxpayer is footing almost all of the bill. And this is all through Lakewood. So you've got, millions of dollars in subsidized dollars, Section 8 subsidized dollars, going to fund this system where they're tearing down these small, little, efficient homes and building these large, oversized, inefficient homes. And so it's totally opposite of what we need to be doing as a society. Totally opposite. We're going down the wrong road. And there just seems to be no concern about the reality of limited fuel energy sources. So what we've got here in Lakewood is just it's maybe a microcosm of what the American mindset is, and how that people are ignoring the reality of where we're at as a world society, and we need to again realize that we need to make some drastic changes. And so instead of people tearing down large houses and building more smaller, efficient houses, it's not happening at all. It's just the reverse, just totally opposite of the practicality of what we should be doing. So in Lakewood, we've got this mindset, and again, we see this discrimination, this assault upon the homeless, people that are just, housing is a basic human right. Everybody needs a place to live, and so attacking somebody's basic human right of affordable housing, is about as cruel as you can get. It's like starving somebody to death. You don't give them housing, they're going to die an early death from being exposed to the elements or whatever. So people need housing, and so and it's just a blatant neglect or a blatant abuse of basic human rights. And again, the township, we tried to bring in, or two contractors wanted to come in and improve our road here coming into Tent City. And both times they stopped the trucks. Somebody reported they saw the trucks coming in and dumping some material to help build up our road here in Tent City, and they sent them away both times. You know, trying to intimidate them, taking their names down, saying, you know, we can find you if we want to, and chase them away. And so what that's doing, though, is, you know, we need a road because they said you shouldn't use an outhouse. The old system of an outhouse isn't what we want. It's not good. It's not healthy. And so these porta-johns are on the roadway. But the last two times, the porta-john man has come up with his truck to this muck and mire and said, I'm not going through there. If I get stuck, I'll be fired.
Is that what happened today?
Yeah, I mean, that happened yesterday or the day before. He showed up for the second time, and you know, he turned around and went back. Our little porta-johns up here are filled to the top right now. I mean, it's becoming unsanitary again. And it's all because the township turned these people away that were trying to improve our road. Another thing is one of the Mexican fellows who has been sick for quite a while. His name was Pedro Gonzalez, a very thoughtful. He was an American citizen, and he was very thoughtful, hardworking, wanted to do the right thing. Was kind of the leader of the Mexican community. He had been sick for about a year. I think he had a kidney problem, and he went into the hospital. His diabetes was getting worse, and he had gone into a diabetic shock, and so he went into the hospital. They let him out, I think, the day before Christmas Eve. He was in Tent City for about 5 days, and somebody went in the morning and they found him. He had died during the night. And what had happened, I believe he went into a diabetic shock, you know, late in the evening, and the other fellows didn't realize it. They didn't know enough. It was cold that day. And so, you know, they didn't know enough to cover him up. He was dressed well, and I think he even had some blankets on, but he wasn't warm enough. But he probably wouldn't have made it anyway with the diabetic shock that he went into. So somebody called me. I was out getting supplies, came back, and, you know, not knowing how long he had, you know, stopped breathing, I tried to give him CPR, tried to see if there was any way to bring him back, and after a while realized that, you know, there was just no hope. The police came, the coroners came, the counties, you know, people came, everybody came. So waiting for the hearse to show up, or, you know, the van that they might use to transport him to the hospital. And what happened was, I was shocked to the point of being appalled. They carried him out in a sheet, slung between two men. They carried him and they put him in the back of an old pickup truck. An old beat up open pickup truck back in the bed. And I just couldn't believe that they would treat somebody like that. You know, and of course I don't think in society they would pull up to somebody's house and somebody had passed away in their house. I don't think they would put them slung in a sheet in the back of a pickup truck. But because he was homeless, and maybe because the road conditions weren't good here, because they wouldn't improve the road, because they wanted to harass us, you know, PD had to go out like that. PD, who I respected, you know, highly because of how he treated his fellow man, because of how he respected other people, because of how he wanted to do what was right by the community. He was just somebody I respected highly. And to see him put into the back of an old pickup truck in a sheet and taken out of here because the township would not allow us to improve the roads, it appalled me. It disgusted me to the core of how the mentality of this township is toward the homeless and toward the poor. So again, you know, they're doing whatever they can to make life hard, and you can see the disgust on the police officers when they come back here about the homeless and how how they view the homeless, and it's just disgusting. And some of the people back in Tent City, James, who just came to the door, hardworking, respectable guy who wants to do the right thing, and there's a lot of people down here like that just are good people. We have what we call Vietnamese Mike. He came from Vietnam when he was 17 years old. I mean, he's always looking to help out, always looking to do the right thing. If you go into his tent, you'd think you just walk into somebody's apartment. I mean, it's gorgeous. His tent is just gorgeous, and so he treats everything with respect. He's respectful, and so again, it's people like that, that I would take him above a lot of people that I would find out in society to try to help me out to do something, or to work with. Townships, what they're doing is they're creating these ordinances that make it too expensive for the poor to live. You've got to have so much area per person in a household. If you're building a new house, a lot of these towns are creating these ordinances. You have to have 3 acres minimum, to build a house. And of course they say, we don't want urban sprawl in our town. So those guys that under different different excuses why they want to limit the poor, or the size of the house. They want to make it so big so that it's so expensive that the poor will not be able to move into their town. And a lot of towns are creating these rules, especially in this area in New Jersey. And it's a discrimination. It's a discrimination against the poor. It's again disguised under different criteria, but when it boils down to it, they don't want the poor in their neighborhood. And so where are the poor to go? The poor are as our society becomes more expensive, our cost of living goes up. Because oil goes up, everything is tied to oil, cost of living goes up. The poor are going to be the first to feel that impact. We can't afford our basic necessities. We can't afford the car anymore. And of course, in our society, no one lives close to their job anymore. Everybody needs transportation. And so the poor, if they can't afford their automobile, they're not going to have the tools that they need to sustain themselves and to keep up, and they're going to go into that spiral, and they're not going to be able to keep up, and they're going to again need government assistance to survive. And this is going on all over America, and a lot of people. I've had people call me from Michigan saying, I found you on the internet. And we've got an industrialized system here in Michigan. Most of it's manufacturing, and plants are shutting down, jobs are shutting down, and they're saying, is Tent City a possibility for me? I'm going into this spiral, and I'm heading down. I'm losing everything that I built up for years, and I just can't sustain myself. Is Tent City a possibility for me? And so there's a lot of people that are doing that. They're moving in with relatives, they're moving in with friends, and there's frustrations there, there's anguish, there's these manifestations of that, of violence and contentions. And so again, we as a society have to realize where we're at. We need to address these things. We need to create these smaller units. These are sustainable units. These affordable units that are affordable at a minimum wage job, affordable at a low income job, something that people can afford and receive their dignity, or keep their dignity, because they can afford the cost of living at a low income job, working at Walmart, working at McDonald's, working at Burger King, or working at the gas station, whatever. They can work and they can still sustain their cost of living. So seeing the state of affairs of America, of the worker, of the low income wage earner, and the cost of living continues to rise, and the income levels are not keeping up with that, We need an alternative. America needs an alternative. People are crying. People are suffering right now, and of course nobody likes to say that they're suffering. Everybody likes to say, hey, you know, I can do this, I can keep up. But the fact of the matter is, our economy is working against the average American right now, and they don't realize it. It's not being told out there in the media like maybe it should be told out there in the media, that the average American, the system is against the average person. The economy is against the average person. The average person is not going to be able to, and it's not his fault. It's not the fault of the worker. And it is the fault of the economy. It's the fault of the politicians not creating that environment that they can be self-sustaining. And so this is what Destiny's Bridge is about. Destiny's Bridge is about creating that environment where people can be self-sustaining. They can have enough money working at that low-income job with all of their needs can be met. Their housing needs, their transportation needs, their basic needs of food and clothing, all can be met at a minimum wage job. And that's what needs to be created. We don't need to heap the blame on the individual that's struggling and striving and saying, what's wrong with me? Am I not a complete person because I can't sustain myself, because I can't keep up? And it's not their fault. And the average American worker needs to realize that it's not his fault. It's the fault of the people, basically corporate America, that saw cheap energy as a way to make money quick, and they took no concern of the long-term ramifications of getting stuck on this non-sustainable sources of energy. And of course it was greed outweighed their wisdom, or outruled their wisdom, and they took no thought of what was going to be coming down the road. They wanted to get rich quick. And so it's the fault of those people that have steered America down this dead-end road of non-sustainable energy. And so it's not the fault of the worker, and we've got to emphasize that. And Destiny's Bridge is an answer to getting housing and getting the cost of living down to a place where people again can feel comfortable, and they're not stressed out, and they're not overworked, they're not overwhelmed, they're not yelling at the wife, and the wife yelling at the kids, and the kids yelling at the dog. That whole scenario of frustration that goes on when people feel like they're not able to keep up. And so, I think we need to, as a society, really, somebody needs to tell the average person that, it's not their fault, and the politicians and the townships need to, wake up and realize that we need to make these changes as a society for the emotional well-being of every individual, that's in our society.